Hello Hustler Nation, I am joined by Ryan Collett from Jasper Organics in this episode. So Ryan's career started off in sales and he did that right out of college, and after that he went on to start 3 different companies. Number 1, he sold golf gloves during his earlier years, and he also started Rooted Apothecary. It's a CBD e-commerce business which he had already sold. And now he's focused on growing Jasper Organics, and it's another brand of CBD products that he has recently launched. And personally, I'm very curious to find out about CBD as a business because I just bought a CBD related domain and I haven't done anything about it. So I really want to know more about the industry. And during my trip in Hawaii, I bought some CBD products just to try it out. I've heard a lot of good things about it. And I have to say that it's very powerful. You know, I was struck with gout the other day, and when I took this CBD oil tincture thing that I got, and it was really effective in terms of suppressing my pain and reducing inflammation on my toe as well, right? So one thing though, CBD is most likely a prohibited product for Facebook, Instagram advertising, or Google, and is only officially legal in a handful of countries all around the world. So guys, if you're as interested as I am to find out about Ryan's journey, his business, and the strategies that he's used to grow his business, stay tuned to the end of this episode, okay? Hey Ryan, welcome to the show. So let's start by introducing yourself a little bit and share a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I'm 28 years old. I got married with 2 little kiddos, and I really started my career, I guess, in sales. So I was in college, and my wife finished, and then I didn't finish college. I dropped out when she had graduated because we got married. And I just kind of went right into, a few different sales jobs. It just kind of fit my personality. And that's kind of where everything really started. For a lot of people, I think in sales, it's one way of, having the feeling of like being an entrepreneur or starting a business, but obviously like you're just not there yet. So, I did that for, I don't know, probably 5 years, I think 5 or 6 years, and worked for some bigger organizations and some corporate sales jobs and stuff like that. And really just, got sick of working for other people. And I think my entire life, I don't take directions well from people.
Yep.
So, I'd always had business ideas, growing up or, even while working for other people. It was always the fear of, how do you start, right? I think that's what most people struggle with is, when you're trying to become an entrepreneur or business owner, is just like where to start, right?
Starting is always the hardest, right?
For sure. So it definitely held me back for a while. I had some like side businesses that I had tried and never just like devoted enough time to them. So, I guess really the first thing that took off was the CBD industry. And so, that's how I got into that years ago, probably about 2.5, 3 years ago now. And it really just started as like frustration with the industry. My wife and I were users of CBD, we still are obviously, but back then we were just consumers. And 3 years ago, the industry was even worse than it is now, as far as like no regulation and no guidance, nothing. So we were super frustrated with the industry, and we were like, it can't be this hard. Like, why can't somebody do it right? So we partnered up with some good people, some doctors and stuff like that. And it just quickly started becoming a thing, it was really something that, started obviously just as like a side hustle. I didn't really know where it was going to go. I never thought it would be like a full-time thing for me. And it just quickly started becoming more and more of a real thing. Like it was, finding a farm and finding the right people to partner with and, figuring out branding, figuring out the name and website and all that kind of stuff. And then it kind of felt like one day it just was a real thing. It was this fully produced business.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started producing money. It was something that we launched, and it started working. So about like 4 weeks into it, I was like, you know what, this is making money. Like if I devoted my entire time to this, it could really make some money,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's pretty much what happened. I mean, it showed me enough that it gave me the courage to like say, hey, you know what, I can do this on my own. And so, yeah, that's when I jumped ship and started doing it full time.
Right. So you sort of juggled sales jobs with this in the beginning?
Yeah. I mean, like when I started this company, I sold that company now. I have a different CBD business, but when I started that one, I was still at the same sales job. It was corporate sales with Marriott. And so I was like juggling those back and forth, trying to do, work on the business while I was at work, and, late nights and stuff like that, just to try and get it up and running. And eventually, like I said, it just made more sense that I saw the potential if I did it full time, that it was going to pay off. So
you mentioned that, it's few years back it was messed up, it's unregulated and stuff like that. But did you know that where I'm from, which is Southeast Asia, by the way, CBD products are illegal and you could actually get hanged for having some of them.
Still to this day?
Yeah. Okay.
Seriously?
That's insane, right? So I started a vape company in 2015, right? And after building the website, I discovered that I couldn't advertise on Facebook and Instagram. So that makes me wonder, you managed to make some money after just 4 weeks into it. How did you get your first customers?
Great question. So yeah, because really even now, like you can kind of do Facebook and Instagram, but it's still like very restricted in what you can do. And that just happened within the past 4 weeks, or the past like couple weeks. So back then you definitely couldn't do anything on Facebook, Instagram, Google. I mean, nothing, right? There was payment processing issues, which is still an issue today. And so it kind of was taking it back to like the basics of marketing, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of it was, word of mouth. But then after that, it really started as influencer marketing. So it's kind of like a loophole through Facebook and Instagram. Instead of paying them directly, I can just pay people with a big following to promote it on those platforms. And that's really what gave that brand its success starting out, was just finding some influencers that had hundreds of thousands of followers that like matched with, health and wellness, and paying them to promote it. That's really how the site got recognized.
Right. So I was in Hawaii just a month ago, and I was shocked. It was my first time to the States, to be honest. And I went to, there were so many shops. It was just in every single convenience store, in every gas station. It's insane how developed the CBD industry is in the US. Like I had gummies. I still have a bottle of tincture that I smuggled back home, But it really, really helped me because 2 weeks ago, I was struck with some pain in my toe. And I took like 3 to 4 drops of it, of like that tincture thing. And it instantly suppressed my pain, like after 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah. So it's really, really interesting, right? Which is insane because in Singapore, in Malaysia, it's not even legal, right? So, okay, we've covered how you got your first customers in your first business in Rooted Apothecary, right?
Yep.
Are you still doing the same form of marketing with your new business?
Yeah. So yes and no. And what I mean by that is like I've noticed that it's changed. So like to give some backstory, I sold the last company over the summer, and then now I started Jasper Organics, and I thought this is just a good story for anybody, in business. I thought that I could just do the same thing, right? I thought, hey, it worked a year and a half ago. Why wouldn't it work today, right? And I thought, hey, let's just find some influencers and pay them to promote the brand. So I did that. 2 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, when I launched this brand, and it didn't work. Like I maybe got some engagement, but it really didn't bring in any sales. And I think what's happened in just a year and a half is everybody figured out in the CBD space that that's the way to do it, is influencers. So then Instagram and Facebook are just flooded with people influencing CBD companies. So now you pay somebody to promote your brand and their followers are like, oh, it's just another CBD business, right? Because they're so used to seeing it on these platforms. So yeah, I mean, it didn't work the same. Now it does still work, but I would say it's harder to find the right audience. So finding an influencer that has a very authoritative reach, right, is getting harder and harder to find on Instagram, because there's so many people, and whether it's CBD or just anything, I think the influencer market is changing just because there's so many people doing it, that like me and you, if we're just scrolling on Instagram, we're so used to seeing like paid posts that we just don't look at them anymore. Like it's becoming something that isn't as effective, I feel like. So you just got to think of different ways, or find different, audiences that maybe haven't been touched as much.
Right. So what are you doing differently now with Jasper Organics?
So I did the influencer thing. Like I said, I did find a few that have worked out. But it was just finding the right person that hasn't done a lot of paid posts, right? So that still works. And then finding other organizations to partner with. So like Mind Body, for example, I don't know if you guys have it much over there, but here it's a organization that basically does all of the booking and stuff for like yoga classes, Pilates, all that kind of stuff. That was one that I can't even remember how I came up with it. I think it was my mom who mentioned it to me, to be honest, that she uses it, and she was like, hey, you should reach out to these people and, see if you can do some paid, advertising with them. So I did, and that worked out. They just did some paid posts for us and stuff on their website and on emails and stuff like that. And, they had never promoted a CBD business to date until us. So things like that, there's other like online health talks and stuff like that we've started to sponsor and promote. And it's all things that just haven't done a lot of CBD stuff or haven't at all.
Places are not saturated. It's funny because like in the previous episode, like this guy, the auntie, he also mentioned he built his business initially through influencer marketing, and then 1 year down the line, it stopped working because competitors have already figured out and saturated the whole thing. So let's go back a little bit. I want to ask, you recently sold Rooted Apothecary like over the last few months. Am I correct?
Yep.
So tell me more about why and how you sold it.
So that one I started with a business partner. Okay. So that one was really like an idea that that kind of I just came up with, and it was a friend and a family friend that was a doctor here in town, and I was like, hey, why don't we do this? we could partner up on it. I thought it'd be a little bit different to have a doctor kind of owned CBD business, and it was good. It was doing great, for a year and going good. I think the best way to put it is just people grew apart, and it was something that was my full-time job, and I saw different visions for it, different plans, different, ways to invest money back into the company and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think anytime you have a business partner, it's hard to align on your visions of everything, especially for, the lifetime of the business.
Mm-hmm.
So it was something that just eventually I was like, you know what, I think it's best if, we part ways and move on. And it was a brand that aligned more with like how he wanted it to look. And so that's why at the end, it just made more sense to sell it to him directly, instead of to like sell it to, an outside source and us both be outside of it.
I see. I'm surprised that, you did not have a non-compete agreement or anything like that to start a second one. But, I guess that's because he's a family friend and stuff, right?
Yes and no. I mean, that was one of the stipulations that I had, is that I wanted to stay in the business, so it was something that the only way I was willing to, sell it was if I could still stay in the industry.
Right. Okay. So across all your side hustles, you've sold golf gloves, you started 2 CBD businesses. Like, is there something that our audience can take away? Is there an advice that you'd give to someone who's just starting out as an entrepreneur?
Like one thing or multiple things?
It can be anything, man.
I think there's a lot of things. I mean, I think one is, don't be afraid to start it, right? And you just got to get your feet wet, there's never a right time. There really isn't. I can relate it to if there's anybody that is listening that is a parent or is married or wants to get married or wants to have kids or wants to buy a house. You always hear those ones very often where it's like, oh, I just want to save up a little bit more money until I buy a house, or I just want to save up a little bit more money until I have a kid, or, I just want to do this before I get married. Those are commonly used in our, culture, and there's never a right time for any of those things. Like nothing's ever perfect.
And nothing ever goes according to plan as well.
Yeah, of course. And business is the same way. Like there's never a right time. I've got some good friends of mine, which if he listens to this, he'll know who I'm talking about, but he great guy, and he's got an awesome entrepreneur mind and has side hustles and all this kind of stuff. And he still works a full-time job. And every time I talk to him, it's always the same thing. It's always like, oh, well, I just want to save up a little bit more money, or I just want to, 6 more months or 1 more year, and it never changes because it's always that everybody, we want that comfort, right? Mm-hmm. And working for somebody and having that full-time job is comfortable, right? So it's hard to step away from that, but you'll realize years later, 5-10 years down the line, you'll be like, wow, like time flew by and I'm still doing the same thing, So it's never perfect, but if it's something that you truly believe in and this is what you want to do, you have to give it a shot. I mean, that's all you can do. And if you fail, that's okay. I mean,
what's the worst that could happen? That's what I ask myself all the time.
Yeah. And that's a great question, because it's like, I mean, even this business, I've invested a lot of money into this business, and still at the end of the day, it's like, what's the worst that can happen? I lose a bunch of money and have to start over. Like, I'm still young, you just have to try, and you'll learn something from everything.
Yep. So let's talk about your family. You're pretty young to have 2 kids, right? How's it like? How's it like juggling, family and entrepreneurship? Because it can be really taxing, working on a business.
That's a tough one. Like literally, it's a tough one. because it definitely is very tough. I would probably say that starting these businesses, at least the ones that were all like my full-time job, were the most taxing things that like my family ever went through, for sure. And it's not even the like hours that you're away from home, because that doesn't change too much. You know, like sometimes I work out of the house, or sometimes I go to the office or whatever. And that's similar probably to even like a different full-time job, right?
Yeah.
It's more the fact that it just never ends. You know, like even when you're home, you're still working. You know, you in this day and age, we have it on our phones, we have it on our tablets, we have it on everything.
Yeah.
So it definitely became really hard to turn it off. Like even on a personal level, like it's hard to say, okay, hey, I'm home and I'm with the kids. Let me not respond to this email that just came up on my phone, or let me not respond to this, you know, question or whatever. Because your natural instinct is like, oh, it'll just take a second. Let me take care of that. And it definitely, because I started to do that a lot. Like, I mean, I was just always responding to things, and you know, then you realize like, oh wow, like it's taking a lot of my time, you know, even when I'm home. And the stress levels, for sure. I mean, anybody starting a business, especially if it's, you know, my wife's a stay-at-home mom, so like I'm the sole, you know, provider for the family. So, you know, 2 kids, wife, house, all that kind of stuff. It's, you know, the stress levels of starting a business and making sure you can pay for all that is a lot. Especially not knowing like if it's going to work, you know? So, you know, there's just different ways to try and manage that, and you have to figure out your ways. I'm still trying to figure that out, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect on it. But you know, like everybody has their ways of getting rid of that, you know, negative energy, and that's, you got to figure out ways to do that. Got to have outlets.
Yeah. Right. I think that's very, very true. You know, as entrepreneurs, if you're at home, you're thinking about the business. When you're watching TV or Netflix, you're thinking about the business. When you're supposed to be traveling or like having fun, you're looking at your phone. And I think it's really important to dedicate time to really disconnect for an hour or two, because that really helped me focus, you know, after, when you get back into the game. I'm not sure how that is for you, but that works for me a lot. Yeah,
For sure.
so
No, I mean, it's a great point though. Like, because figuring out how to disconnect is probably the hardest thing. Because especially if it's like your baby that you built, it's so hard to just say like, oh, for an hour or two, or even, you know, like to take a few days off, like go on a vacation. Like you have to force yourself to do those things though, because you'll drive yourself nuts.
yeah. So one more thing that I wanted to ask. You mentioned earlier that you are facing some payment processing issues. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So the industry is constantly having issues, you know, in the CBD space. You know, obviously, you know, I didn't even know about the whole, you know, Singapore thing. So there's things like that, right? That where countries, states, and stuff like that try to regulate, you know, make it illegal or not allow it in their, you know, country or their state. And then there's things like payment processing. So payment processing has been an issue since day one. That, you know, you had mentioned you had gotten into the vape industry, I believe.
Yep.
All of those things are considered high risk for banks and payment processors. So they still see CBD, you know, even what, it's been 5 years now that it's really been in the market. They still see it as high risk. So it's very hard to get a stable payment processor. I mean, I've gone through, I don't know, 6 or 7 in 2 years, you know.
Have you heard of CyberSource or Authorize.net?
Yeah, Authorize.net is like the gateway, but then you still need an actual processor. So you like the, so like your processor, like I'll give you an example, like Elevon US Bank was in it for a long time, and they were great. I mean, they're a massive company. And then one day they just decided like, hey, we're gonna pull out of the CBD business and shut thousands of companies down. And that happened overnight. I mean, it was just gone. So it's always a struggle. I mean, banks, I've been shut out of banks before, where they're just like, hey, take your money, get it out of here, because they still see it as a marijuana industry. So it's been getting better. I mean, like you have Square now, who just came into the market, and they're doing CBD processing. Apparently BMO Harris is now getting into it.
Right.
So you have some bigger players getting into the market for processing. The hard thing is the stability is like, I still don't believe it. I've gone through so many, and even when these bigger players get into the market,
you're still doubtful and stuff.
Yeah, I'm still doubtful that like 6 months from now, they'll just decide like, hey, we're going to pull out and shut everybody down, So,
Nice.
and the hard thing is like the big players, you've got like maybe 5 to 10 CBD companies that are doing, tens of millions, close to 100 million a year in the US. And apparently there's a company called Esquire, and they're the ones that do processing for like massive companies. But you have to be processing at least $1 million a month, apparently, to even talk to them.
Wow. So they're like enterprise level.
Yeah. So, anybody who's below that, it's like, it just seems like, there's troubles in the market constantly.
Right. So how do you get on top of these issues? Like sometimes, you just go without payment processing for days or weeks, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, loopholes, there's like, try to go with payment processors that you're not supposed to be with, to be honest with you. Try and get away with it for a few days until you can find a new one. Because obviously shutting down the site and all that kind of stuff is usually not an option. So yeah, you just got to try and figure out different ways to do it until you can find somebody. So.
Right. So right now, are you running the show alone?
Yeah, right now I'm running it alone. I'm thinking about taking in a business partner. We're in negotiation right now. But yeah, it's pretty much me. And then, I mean, we have a team of like some writers and, people that do SEO, and do, like the marketing and all that kind of stuff. And then we have a few sales reps throughout the US right now too.
I see. So I wanted to ask one more thing, but I can't seem to remember. Just give me a moment.
I love when that happens.
Oh yeah. What would you what is there like, did you fuck up so bad at any point in your business that you were like, oh shit, but then eventually recovered from it?
I don't think there was any like major fuck ups, to be honest. There was definitely things that I would like do differently, more just like investment wise. But other than that, I wouldn't say there's any like major things. I mean, I think the only thing that I've tried to teach myself is to be riskier with money in my businesses. And I know that kind of sounds crazy. But in the first few years, I kind of feel like to be successful, you really have to ride that line of like, being really risky with investments as far as like just, different marketing ventures and different things to get your name out there.
You mean double down on something that you think that your gut tells you will work?
Yeah, exactly. Like, money just sitting in the account is not doing it's not growing your business, right?
Yep.
So I think one thing that I've learned and tried to continue to, coach myself on is that, you can't treat your business finances like your personal finances. A lot of us with personal finances like to, save it and, make sure that we have nice nest eggs and stuff. With business, at least when you're starting a business, at least in my opinion, you have to be a little bit riskier with it, and you have to use it to its advantage and make sure that it's, it's working for you, right? And it's at least getting your name out there. So with this one, I'm definitely doing that more than with previous businesses. Because with previous businesses, I was so scared.
And you were accountable to another business partner, I guess.
Yeah, that as well, but just in general, like it was just that it was the first thing. It was the first thing I'd done full time. And it was just scary, so it was always like, oh, like make sure that we have this nest egg in the business and all that. But that's just it's not doing anything for you. It's not growing your name. It's not growing your brand. So, of course you want to analyze things, and you want to make sure that your money is going towards good things. But if it's just sitting there, it's not doing anything for you.
Right. Can you share a little bit more specifics on, say, a particular scenario where you would have done something differently?
On the investment wise?
Yep.
Okay, so something differently with the last one, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. So like with the last one, okay, I would say two things. One, the first thing would be being smarter about finding ways to, people to do things for you. So like SEO, for example, I think you, from what I saw on your website, you have some background in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So SEO for, in the States, with my last company, I used to pay people thousands of dollars a month, for SEO. Cause I think it's all something that, we need to do, right? Everybody should be doing it in one way or another. And then I learned with this company that if you outsource it to other people, maybe through the US or outside of the US, you can get it for a heck of a lot cheaper and still get the same type of work. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's one way that you can save in your business, and then you could take those thousands of dollars and invest it in something else. So I definitely would have done that differently, knowing that now, that there is ways to save and then redirect that money into other things. With the last one as well, I would have upped the marketing budget every month. So like
scales with your revenue growth sort of thing.
Yeah. So like, to give example, like now, there's these online health summits that you can sponsor. But they're not cheap, they're like $5,000 for every, online talk. But basically it's the best way to describe it is it's like a conference online, right? Mm-hmm. For health and wellness. And there's all these different doctors that partake in the speeches. I think I did one of those with the last company as far as a sponsorship. Looking back, I should have done one every month,
Wow.
Because they have great results and you get great leads from them. And, so that's a specific example, at least, of like how, it's $5,000, but if it's paying off, why not keep doing it?
Or more of it, right?
Yeah. Or more of it. Yeah. I mean, do two a month, So
can you share an example of one of these conferences? Because I like to check them out as well.
Okay, so if you go to Health Talks Online.
Health Talks Online.
Yep.
All right.
They're all different types of topics. They do like, I think 3 or 4 a month, right? And it's anything on health and wellness. So, and you can, if you have a business that aligns with one of those topics, you should be sponsoring it,
Are you still doing it right now with Jasper Organics?
Yep. If you look at, there's one that's live right now, and we're sponsoring it right now.
Okay. I'll check that out after this episode. Yep.
So, I mean, those are just, examples of things. And now with like the Facebook and Instagram marketing, and Snapchat too, you can do all those things now in the CBD space, but there's just, there's still
Snapchat advertising.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Like the swipe ups for Snapchat.
Yep.
You can do all that now in the CBD space. It's just, there's definitely some, strict guidelines that you have to follow. But that's another one where it's like, if it's pushing leads, right now it's working for us.
Snapchat's
You know,
Snapchat is like heavily underutilized right now. I think it's like
yep,
fallen off the grid a little bit, but
yep,
I think there's still a lot of active, really engaging followers over there.
for
Nice.
sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I think just figuring out all of those things and how to double down on them. Same thing. Weirdly enough, I'm sure you know about TikTok.
Yeah.
That's becoming a huge thing right now.
Yeah, but they don't have an advertising platform though, right?
Not like a self-serve one. There
Uh-huh.
is people advertising on it, but I think you have to have like agency permission through them right
Right.
now, at least.
I
Um,
see.
but that's another one that like I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm looking into. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so I think all of those things of like how to be creative. LinkedIn marketing is great.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
the lead, like cost per clicks are so expensive on LinkedIn, from my
yeah.
experience. Anyway.
So with LinkedIn, we're pretty much only using that for wholesale leads. So it's worth the higher cost per click because we're going after a higher dollar amount customer.
Right, because those are B2B customers, right?
Correct. Yep. So we're using LinkedIn solely for just B2B. So yeah, the cost per clicks are a lot. It can be $20-$30, right? For like to get an actual lead, like them fill out a form and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm getting them to fill out a form or send me an email, we probably have a 50% chance of closing them. So that's worth $20 or $30.
Right.
Because they've already seen who we are. They're interested in CBD products if they're, filling out that form. So, then it really just comes down to why us, and do we have the type of CBD products they're looking for?
I see. LinkedIn advertising. Let me write that down. So I'm curious because I just bought a domain, CBD Review Hero.
Nice.
I haven't done anything with it yet, but I'm thinking of launching like a product review site sort of thing for CBD products. So anyways, that
There
aside,
you go.
trusted CBD guide, CBD education.
Yeah, that's my review site.
How's that doing for you?
It's just in the like startup stage. I haven't put too much time into it. It's up. There's some content on there and stuff. There's a few reviewed brands, but it's at its early stages. I got to put way more time into it.
Yeah.
But to your point, I think that's a huge market.
I think it is, but I'm not sure if you know much about Google's guidelines. They recently updated their algorithms about YMYL, something like
Okay.
your money, your life. So CBD is classified under say health and wellness products.
Okay.
So for your content to rank, it has to be written by doctors, which is why people like Healthline is like dominating the search results and stuff like that.
Huh.
Yeah, and that thing is putting me off from putting much work into CBD Review Hero because it's going to be so expensive hiring doctors to write, man.
I'd be interested to see if that sticks around though, because like that algorithm, because there is a ton. I wouldn't say a ton, but there's a good handful, like 10 or 20 really good review sites out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd probably say like 5 of those are really, really good.
Right.
That have definitely some really high authority. And they're so far down the line that I don't think that Google is going to be able to really, like get those to. Like they already have a really big audience. Those 5 or so review websites. So like people know who they are. They know the name. So yeah, it might be harder to start a new one, but I don't know. I always think there's other ways around it. You still have social media. You still have other platforms that you could become.
Yeah, I like how you think. If one door closes, like go find other doors, right?
Yeah, I'm doing SEO for Google, but it's not like I really have any. I'm not banking on that. Like that's the the SEO game in Google for a CBD company, I couldn't even come close to affording to rank in. You know, I mean, like you would be spending millions of dollars, you know, every year. You'd be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every month to try and compete with the people that are already ranking in Google for CBD.
Yeah.
So it's like it's something that I put some money into, because it's like, well, you know, I still want my name to show up if somebody searches my name and all that stuff, but it's that game is already taken over. So look for a different game to play.
Right.
You know?
So last question before we end this episode, Ryan. What does it take to start your own CBD brand? Like, I'm pretty sure you partner up with farms and designers and printers and stuff like that, right? Can you share a little bit more about that?
So it's gotten a little bit easier, like more a la carte, so to speak, because there's, you know, a lot of people coming into the industry. So really, it just takes a lot of, you know, research. I mean, Google can really tell you most of what you need to do, to be honest with you. You know, but yeah, I mean, it starts with your most important thing, or what should be your most important thing is, you know, your source. So finding a source that is reliable, that is, you know, good product, and that, you know, can take care of you, right? So, you know, for us, ours was always finding a one-stop shop that does everything as far as like fully integrated. So, you know, they're not outsourcing from other things. A lot of these, you know, a lot of these different places will buy just bulk hemp from overseas or from, you know, by the truckload or whatever, and you have no idea what you're getting in your final product. I don't like that, because that's pretty scary. You know, who we work with, you know, they actually farm it, they process it, and then they, you know, ship it to us. So it's all, you know, pretty much vertically integrated. We know every step of the process. I just was out there last.
Do packaging and labeling and all that as well for you?
They can, yeah, they can. They can do packaging. They don't offer labeling, but that's another thing that you could find. You know, if you don't want to do it in house, you can find places that like a lot of this is networking. You know, like even if you ask, you know, the place where you're getting all your raw CBD from, you know, you can ask them like, hey, do you know anybody that bottles it? And they'll send you a reference. Or, hey, do you know anybody that, you know, can label the bottles? And they'll send you a reference. So it's just all these different steps. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to start, you know, buying equipment for yourself. You can, but in this day and age, you can outsource a lot of that stuff. Right. So a lot of it's connections, and then a lot of it is, you know, searching online, but finding that source first is definitely the most important thing. And then, yeah, finding a really good, you know, graphic designer that can do all your branding. You know, either you building the site yourself or finding somebody who's really good at that. I definitely don't know how to build sites, so I outsource that to a good friend of mine. But you know, it's just one step at a time. You know, there's a lot of things that go into it, and you learn along the way. There's things that I did with the first brand that, you know, I learned from, like, what's the barcodes? I had no idea until, you know, a year ago that there's an actual like US organization that you register barcodes with. I had no idea. Like I never, you know, who thinks of that? I thought you could just go online and like grab a barcode, you know, I'll like create one. No, you actually have to like buy one from the US government, you know.
How much does one cost?
It's like $25. It's not much. Okay. But, you know, if you want it like actually registered in the, you know, in the States, so that if any store scans it, it knows what it is. There's an actual organization that does that if you just Google it. So these are all things that you learn as the way. Your first packaging that you do is probably not going to be your final, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So it's all just one step at a time. You got to, you know, check things off a list, right?
So yeah, I know I said last question, but I have another one for you. What's next for Jasper Organics?
That's a great question. I think, you know, for Jasper, it's definitely, as far as products go, I don't think we're going to expand that line too much. You know, we are now USDA organic certified, so we're working on the paperwork for that. So that's some awesome news. To be able to actually promote that, we just have to go through a whole paperwork process that'll take a few months. But that's probably the biggest thing right now for this brand, and then it's just more growth and how we can figure out different way to grow the brand and try and take us at least a chunk of the market over. But then, branch off to other things. I mean, the real plan is to have a handful of CBD businesses.
Across different business models.
Correct. Yep. So, one that is the staple product that is, an organic certified product. Then one that is maybe more of like a sports line product. And we'll see what other things the industry gets into, but in the next year there'll probably be 2 or 3 CBD companies that are all run by us.
Nice, awesome news, man. I hope it all works out for you, and I'm pretty sure with your positive attitude, it's not going to be a problem, right? So Ryan, thanks for coming on to the show. It was a pleasure hosting you and chatting with you about CBD, the industry, and how you hustle. So hustlers, that's the end of this episode, and I want to take this podcast to the next level, and I need you to help me do it. I want to hear what you think about this episode. So go to HUSTLR.com without the /feedback and let me know what you think about this episode. If you know someone who might benefit from this episode, please share it with that person. Okay? See you in the next episode. Bye. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ben.